What's up, Star Wars fans? It's John of Video Games and the World, and may the 4th be with you. Yeah, it's May 4th, which means it's a Star Wars day for many of us who love the franchise since either the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, or the sequel trilogy. Me, I first saw Star Wars when I was very little back in the early 1990s, when I saw A New Hope at my late aunt's house, and also saw Empire Strikes Back, my personal favorite. Since then, I fell in love with the movies. I remember watching The Phantom Menace when I was 13 in a movie theater. Yeah. The Star Wars series has been a cultural icon for 46 long years, and it still shines to this day. Some love Star Wars, others do not. That series has spawned toys, coloring books, video games, and tons of merchandise as well. So in this video, I'm going to talk about my favorite Star Wars moment in every movie, starting from the prequel trilogy all the way to the sequel trilogy. This will also include Rogue One and Solo. Let us begin, everyone. Episode 1, Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi vs. Darth Maul. A lot of people didn't like The Phantom Menace while others did. Me, I wasn't too fond of it since it was pretty meh. But it has its redeeming moments like the pod racing scene and the Naboo space battle. However, my most favorite moment of the movie is the battle between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul. I really like the choreography, the intensity of the fight as one of the most iconic battle themes in Star Wars was playing, Duel of the Fates. We get to see a younger Obi-Wan in action alongside his master Qui-Gon fighting that Sith Lord, Darth Maul. When Qui-Gon was mortally wounded by Darth Maul, we saw that Obi-Wan was ready to kill this guy. Though he was a Padawan, gotta give him credit how he held his own against a more experienced fighter. He did win because of the circumstances. However, Obi-Wan did indeed use the dark side of the Force during his duel against Darth Maul. He lost his innocence by touching the dark side in this duel and taking a life. Luckily, that did not turn Obi-Wan away from the light. Read Obi-Wan's comic. You can find it at your local library, Barnes & Noble, or your favorite comic book store to learn more. Episode 2, Yoda vs. Count Dooku. Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones was not very well received by fans as they felt the story was not very well executed, the acting was terrible, and the love story between Anakin and Padme felt kind of boring. Honestly, I liked this one in some ways. What redeemed Episode 2, however, was the Clone Wars cartoon that premiered in 2008. What I liked about the story is that this was the beginning of Anakin's downfall and how his tapping into the dark side would shape him into something more sinister in the future. Now, my favorite moment in this movie was Yoda versus Count Dooku. We first saw Yoda in Empire Strikes Back mentoring Luke, and a shining moment when we saw him use the Force to get Luke's X-Wing out of the water. Since then, Yoda became a beloved character. Anyways, Yoda versus Count Dooku was my favorite fight as we got to see two very powerful warriors duking it out, not only with their knowledge of the Force, but with their lightsaber skills. That scene was just epic. It was beautifully well done. And rest in peace, Christopher Lee. Thank you for playing Count Dooku. We miss you.
Fought well you have, my old Padawan.
This is just the beginning.
Episode 3, Palpatine's Temptation. Episode 3 is considered to be the best of the prequels. In this movie, Anakin falls into the dark side as he struggles mentally and emotionally between his feelings for Padme and dedication to the Jedi Order as he starts to envision a very dark future as he sees his love die in childbirth. Palpatine sees the darkness in Anakin and how he fears losing Padme. When Anakin is told that among the Jedi, attachment is forbidden as it can lead to jealousy, which can lead to fear, anger, hate, and suffering in the end. In episode 2, Padme believed that love was forbidden for a Jedi, yet Anakin told her that attachment was forbidden. Funny. The scene in the opera where Palpatine tells Anakin about Darth Plagueis the Wise is like one of the best moments in the movie. We see how Palpatine is tempting Anakin into learning the ways of the dark side of the Force, which includes saving people from death. Palpatine could see that Anakin was vulnerable, and that's how he manipulated him by seeing his attachments, resentments, and how his hopes are shattered by reality. Palpatine saw Anakin as a potential apprentice by seeing his vulnerabilities, attachments, resentments, shattered hopes, and since Obi-Wan was an inexperienced Jedi Master, he saw this as an opportunity to manipulate Anakin. Solo, a Star Wars story, the Kessel Run. Say what you may about this movie, but this one I liked as it felt more like Star Wars than the sequels. This movie took elements from the novels of the Corellian Trilogy. The Corellian Trilogy is a Legends novel that focuses on the adventures of Han Solo, and it's really a good novel. It sucks that the Legends timeline is no longer canon, yet it remains very much loved. The Kessel Run is the most iconic moment in the movie. We finally get to see how the Millennium Falcon made the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs. As Han, Chewie, Lando, and Kira were escaping from Kessel, they were pursued by Imperial TIE fighters. That scene was very well made. It was so much fun, exciting, awesome visuals, and special effects were so top-notch. The music, I loved how they included elements from the Asteroid Belt theme from Empire Strikes Back. The Millennium Falcon might have been owned by Lando, but Han was meant to be its pilot. Yeah. Rogue One, a Star Wars story, Battle of Scarif. Rogue One is one of my most favorite movies as it felt more like Star Wars than The Force Awakens. This movie was released a year after The Force Awakens and takes place before the events of A New Hope. And to think Cassian Andor would have his own show years later and a new season is on the way. Yay. Rogue One drew certain elements from the story of Star Wars Dark Forces, where a mercenary and later Jedi, Kal Katarn, obtained the plans of the Death Star and sent it to the Rebel Alliance. My favorite moment is the Battle of Scarif, as we see the rebels fight against the Imperial forces, while Jyn and Andor go for the Death Star plans. The space battle was phenomenal, very much like Star Wars with its many awesome aerial combat scenes. I also loved how Chirrut Imwe prayed to the Force as he was walking to deactivate the shield generator. Not to mention that the final moments of the battle felt very emotional and sad as we see the heroes make a last stand, die fighting, and accept their fates. But that scene with Vader took the cake. Seeing Leia shortly after Carrie Fisher's death felt very emotional as well. We love you, Carrie. We miss you so much. A New Hope, Leia's Rescue, and the Garbage Chute. A New Hope was the first Star Wars movie and it changed sci-fi cinema forever since 1977. Now, there are many fantastic moments such as Han and Greedo in the cantina, Han shot first by the way, the Death Star trench battle, Obi-Wan vs. Vader, etc. But there are scenes I totally enjoyed as well. The one where Luke and Han rescue Leia.
Short for stormtrooper?
Not to mention on how Han was trying to distract the stormtroopers, which was hilarious, and then forced to shoot the communications device. When they fell into the garbage chute, we see how they are opposites. When the walls start to close on them and that creepy creature trying to drown Luke, that's a gold moment when they start working together instead of arguing. Awesome moment. Empire Strikes Back, Luke vs. Vader. Aside from the other moments I enjoyed, such as the Battle of Hoth, the asteroid field, the frozen carbonite scene, Luke vs. Vader takes the cake for me. Because this is an iconic moment where it's an inexperienced fighter against an extremely dangerous adversary. Luke is just learning how to control his fear and use the Force. That moment when he lost his hand was crazy. What made it even more tragic and sad was this revelation that became so iconic.
I am the one.
It was so ingrained in our minds and hearts for all the years to come. Although I wasn't born at that time when the movie was released and saw this as a child, I was so shocked. I envy the people who went to see this when it first released in 1980. That scene is just awesome cinematography, writing, and development. Fantastic, and it's no wonder why The Empire Strikes Back is my most favorite Star Wars movie ever. Return of the Jedi, Luke vs. Vader and the Emperor. Return of the Jedi may not have been as great as Empire Strikes Back, but at least it has a mark as one of the best Star Wars movies ever. Not to mention that it is the last of the original trilogy and a good closing to an amazing story. I really enjoyed the final battle between Luke and Vader. We see that Luke has grown as a Jedi and attempts to bring his father back into the light. Because Vader learns that Luke has a twin sister and plans to get her in the dark, Luke taps into the dark side of the Force, unleashing his anger and dismembering Vader. Palpatine offers Luke to become his new apprentice, but Luke refuses and stays in the light, despite having recently tapped into the dark side when unleashing his anger to protect Leia from the Sith. Palpatine uses his iconic Force lightning, and that's when we finally see Vader save his son. That moment when Luke removes his father's helmet was very moving, touching, and emotionally driven. His father had finally returned to the light, and it was beautiful. Now that we're done with the original trilogy, let's jump into 30 years after Return of the Jedi. Finally. The Force Awakens, Chewie, we're home. The Force Awakens is the first movie of the Star Wars sequel trilogy by J.J. Abrams. This movie takes place 30 years after Episode 6, which introduces brand new characters in a brand new adventure. A new enemy is introduced, the dreaded First Order, which rose from the ashes of the Empire. Some people love the sequel trilogy, others hate it. But some people don't like it because they believe it's a rehash of the original trilogy. Yeah, it feels the same, but still, it has its good and bad moments too. There are some epic moments such as the battle against the Starkiller base, Finn vs. Nines, Finn and Rey vs. Kylo Ren, etc. But there's one particular moment that made me feel like I was home after being far away for a long time. And that's what every one of us Star Wars fans felt. We were right back home. Seeing old characters again was beautiful. We felt our childhoods and adolescenthoods return to us with this movie. It was cool how Rey and Finn recognized the ship and who the pilot was once they saw him. And what made me laugh is how Rey got the number of parsecs the ship made the Kessel Run wrong.
This is a ship that made the Kessel Run in 14 parsecs.
12!
That was a beautiful moment, especially when Han tells Finn and Rey about the Force. He was once a non-believer, but then after his experiences with Luke, Leia, and the Rebellion during the Galactic Civil War, he started to believe in it. The Last Jedi, Luke and Yoda. The Last Jedi is considered the most divisive movie of the sequel trilogy. Rian Johnson made a new take on the saga that many love with their hearts, others hate it to the core. Many love this fresh new take due to its subversion of expectations, such as that moment when Luke threw the lightsaber away, while others disliked it because they felt that it wasn't like Star Wars, lack of character development, poorly executed plot, etc. We see that the hero became a bitter, depressed, and cynical old man that felt that the Jedi were the problem and that they should end. When Rey confronts Luke about how Kylo Ren fell into the dark side as he was manipulated by Snoke, Luke is about to burn the tree with all the Jedi texts inside. Yoda's sudden unexpected appearance to me was beautiful. When I first saw this movie, I was like, why is Luke so whiny because of defeat? But as I carefully saw this scene, it felt like something I could relate to when it came to failure. Yoda tells Luke that although he failed in saving Kylo Ren from the dark side, he can still help Rey. And that made me think of my past mistakes and failures in my personal life when Yoda said, "Defeat is not the end. The greatest teacher, failure is." It's very true that failure can teach you more than success. You can't always win and succeed, because when you fail, it's an opportunity for you to learn and do better than ever before. Like they say in Batman Begins, why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves up. No one is going to pick you up when you fall. You have to do it yourself. There will be those who motivate you, but you have to do it yourself. Now, when it comes to The Last Jedi, I did indeed have my biases. I self-criticize now, even after my Last Jedi essay, that Rey being a nobody not making any sense to me was biased and didn't pay enough attention. Heroes don't always have to come from some bloodline of heroes like the Belmonts in Castlevania or every Link in every Legend of Zelda game. Many heroes come from nothing, not always a family clan or descendants of legendary heroes. The Last Jedi is about learning from failures and how choices can have consequences that can be very costly, like Poe destroying the Dreadnought but at a cost to the resources and many soldiers. Also, to defend what you love instead of fighting what you hate so much. I know people are tired of hearing this. If you hated The Last Jedi because it's too woke, SJW propaganda, man-hating feminist propaganda, and how Rian Johnson butchered it, then you're wrong and acting like a fool. It sucks how toxic fans went so far out of their way to send death threats at Rian Johnson, Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, and Kelly Marie Tran. Many toxic fans of Star Wars still do, unfortunately. And that sucks. Of course, there are toxic people who love The Last Jedi and go so far in calling people who didn't like it for legitimate reasons such as racists and sexists. If you think this movie is about women putting men in their place, then you're wrong as well. Don't be a misandrist, but don't be a misogynist just because you didn't like the movie. And just because you like the movie, like I said, don't be a misandrist. Got it? The Rise of Skywalker, Luke's appearance. A lot of people thought that The Rise of Skywalker was the worst, while others liked it more than The Last Jedi. Me, in a way, I liked it more than The Last Jedi, but after seeing it a second time, the outcome was different this time. How so? Because so many moments were corny, and I didn't like how Lando didn't have such a huge role in the story. I felt that Palpatine being still alive even after he fell in Return of the Jedi felt so forced, as if J.J. Abrams didn't know what to do with the plot. It was like a poor rehash of Return of the Jedi. Still, what I liked was that in Ahch-To, Rey was disturbed by her Sith lineage that she was doing what Luke attempted to do in the last film, to burn the Jedi texts, including the lightsaber. That is when Luke shows up as a Force spirit and encouraged her to face Palpatine using the lightsaber that Leia used during her brief Jedi training with Luke. Rey leaves for Exegol in Luke's X-Wing fighter using the Wayfinder from Kylo's ship. Despite many things I didn't like, that didn't stop this movie from trying to be as good as it can. Many would say that if Rian Johnson wrote and directed the film, it would have been better. But knowing the toxic fans, they would have rebumped the hell out of this movie if Johnson was writer and director. And that's my talk of my favorite Star Wars moments in the movies. First of all, I want to give my shout out to Turf Nation, Nerdette's Newsstand, Xander Hall, Suris, The Phantom Initiative, Hominis Nocturna, my subscribers and commenters on my channel. What are your favorite Star Wars moments in each of these movies? Tell me in the comments below. Happy Star Wars Day, everyone. This is John of Video Games and the World, and may the Force be with you. Always.